an illusion? Are we conscious agents of our thoughts and actions? Or are we just victims to life circumstances and genetics? The free will debate has grabbed my brain and turned it upside down. Neuroscientists, psychologists, philosophers have been so interested in finding out whether we have or don't have free will. But why? We feel free, so why does it matter if we are actually free? Why complicate ourselves? Well, let me tell you this quote. To hate, to love, to think, to feel, to see, all is nothing but to perceive. David Hume. Autonomy in our society is not only what gives us that sense that what we decide and do matters, but it shapes a very big part of our personality. We aren't just hopeless beings that let life happen to us. We move and do things and change things that ultimately not only give us a sense of confidence, but gives us a purpose. Now imagine that all of that we thought was love, fear, creativity, was all just predispositions that were there just because they had to be. That we were just marionettes to our genes and past experiences. The free will debate has two most talked about sides. But keep in mind that just because these are the two most talked about and controversial, that there isn't any more. These are just the ones that we will talk about today. Like every good essay or speech, let's begin with a definition. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, free will is, well, when I was writing this part, I thought arriving at a definition for free will is so hard because it means something different to everyone. So let's explore a few possibilities. To some, it's the act of being able to have chosen differently in the past, or not being affected by our past in the present. My goal for you is to create your own point of view on this, so that next time that you're out talking to your colleagues or your friends, or even just sitting by yourself in a chair thinking about life, you're able to have a clear idea of what the two spectrums of the argument say, and maybe which one of those makes most sense to you. I think that today we will see how truly dark the consequences of a world with no free will are. I know I said I didn't want to start with a definition, but we kind of have to, because if we don't have a definition, we don't really have anything to go off of. So I'm gonna go with the definition I found on the Merriam-Webster dictionary. The first definition says a voluntary choice or a decision. The second definition says freedom of humans to make choices that are not determined by prior causes or by divine intervention. I think the word voluntary is very important in this definition because the definition of the word voluntary is proceeding from the will or from one's own choice or consent. This means that free will is based on the fact that we must give consent and be meaning to do something to have free will. Okay, so keeping this in mind, let's proceed. There is libertarian free will and hard determinism. Between these two ideas, there is compatibilism. But let's start with libertarian free will. I found a definition that I feel does a really good job at encompassing the main points of this view. I found it on the Pocket Dictionary of Apologetics and Philosophy of Religion. Libertarian free will, by them, it's defined as, in ethics and metaphysics, the view that human beings sometimes can will more than one possibility. According to this view, a person who freely made a particular choice could have chosen differently, even if nothing about the past prior to the moment of choice had been different. In the libertarian free will paradigm, the fact that we could have chosen differently is very important to the claim that they make that we do in fact have free will. Because in the case that that wasn't true, we couldn't be held responsible morally for our actions. Libertarians tend to go off on the fact that we sure feel very free. So, unless we're not chained or imprisoned, then we are the conscious source of our thoughts and actions. Thomas Hobbes said that freedom of will completely consisted of there being no external impediments to an agent doing what he or she wanted to do. But one of the problems I personally have with libertarian free will is that they don't make a distinction between freedom of will versus freedom of action. Some people think that we are able to have free will without any freedom of action. And let me explain this further. Let's say your friends invited you out tonight and you live in a 40th floor, but right when you try and open your door, your lock is broken. So you're stuck there until someone comes to fix your lock and allow you to leave. Basically, this is saying that a lot of the times we may want to do something, but outside sources keep us from actually doing them. And freedom of action is really important to libertarian free will, because if we don't have the access to all of the possible finalities, then how can we truly be free or possess free will? But enough about libertarian free will. Let's look at the opposing side, hard determinism. Hard determinism fully accepts the theory of determinism, which states that everything in the universe is governed by causal laws. Basically, it means that all actions stem from a long chain of events that began millions and millions of years ago, since the beginning of time. That everything that has happened is all that could have happened, meaning that we don't possess any free will. There is a book, it's called Free Will by Sam Harris. He is a very prominent speaker on the free will debate. He has a lot to say on why we don't have free will. And in his book, he makes 3 points of what it would mean for us to actually have free will. The first one is, it is to say an agent has the capacity to choose his or her course of action. Second, to have complete control over the factors that determine our thoughts and actions. And third, to be the conscious source of most of our thoughts and actions. The downside of determinism is that we still know so little about consciousness. The downside to hard determinism is the fact that we still know so little about consciousness. And the strong conviction that we have that compels us to believe that we have freedom to choose. There is a few views under hard determinism that support its validity. One of them is causal determinism. It basically states that an agent is free to do what he wants to do, even if he is causally determined to do that action. For example, let's do a thought experiment. Imagine some sort of entity took control of your brain and put a mouse and a button inside. Basically, this mouse and this button were supposed to make it so that you like to eat chocolate ice cream instead of any other flavor that was out there. All your life you have liked chocolate ice cream, so the next time that you went to eat chocolate ice cream or eat ice cream, you chose chocolate ice cream. So the mouse didn't have to do anything. It just stayed still and didn't push any button, nothing. Didn't do anything because you had chosen the chocolate ice cream. But then there was another time when you went to go get ice cream and you were about to choose vanilla. So you said, vanilla, please. And then the mouse pushed the button and you were like, no, sorry, chocolate. This argument poses the question, can we truly be free if we are determined? Because what the mouse thought experiment shows us is that, yeah, you chose chocolate the first time because that's what you liked. But let's say one day you didn't want chocolate ice cream. You wouldn't have been able to choose that other ice cream any day or even that day, because what happened in the past happened because you were in a specific frame of mind, in a specific situation, and a million other factors caused you to choose chocolate. So going back would change nothing because you chose what you chose in the moment for a reason. But an even darker consequences that is posed by determinism is that if we are predetermined by a million factors like genetics and past experiences and a bunch of others, then how can we be held morally responsible for our actions if we basically have no control over our genes or our past experiences? Which, if the theory of determinism were true, would say we have absolutely no free will. Because in order to have free will, we would have to not only be victims to our genes. Moral responsibility. What makes the free will argument so compelling, and mostly to me, is the fact that it questions that moral responsibility that we have. When it comes to moral responsibility, it seems like free will is absolutely necessary in order for us to have it. But there is these two ideas, and it's moral responsibility and causal responsibility. Basically, let's say a 30-year-old man is driving his car and he suddenly gets in a car crash where he got a heart attack and it basically caused him to be in that car crash. He hurt the three people that were in the other car he crashed into. In a way, it wasn't his fault that he got a heart attack, but he did hurt these people. So he was causally responsible for hurting them because, yes, it was him that got the heart attack, and yes, he did hurt them, but not morally, because he didn't mean to get a heart attack. He was just a victim of his health, and he got it and was in a wreck. There's a philosopher, his name is John Martin Fischer. He believes that humans don't possess free will, but nonetheless, they are still morally responsible for their actions, because he believes that between moral responsibility and free will, there is a difference of how much control is needed to carry out each one, and that moral responsibility requires less control than free will, and that basically we possess a level of control over ourselves which is enough to be held morally responsible. Fischer is a compatibilist, and therefore he believes that we can be predetermined while still having free will, so best of both worlds. But you know what's crazy? From a deterministic point of view, a serial killer is no more morally responsible than the 30-year-old man that got a heart attack and crashed. Because technically, how can we judge a serial killer for killing when perhaps he is just a victim to his brain and past experiences, his society, and a million other factors that don't allow him to freely choose? Of course, this is an incredibly controversial point that would bring us to question our whole legal system, which bases itself on the fact that we have moral responsibility over our actions and are free will agents that possess free will. This topic is beautiful, I believe, because it touches absolutely everything that makes us human. If not every single experience that makes us human. Many believe that the moral responsibility and free action implications are just the tip of the iceberg. The importance of whether we possess or not free will touches our capacity to love, creativity, dignity, autonomy, agency, and rationality. But the final question I ask you is, would the world be able to accept a world that has no free will, where we come to the terms and accept the fact that we don't have free will? How would that look like? Leave me down in the comments what you think. I would love to hear what you have to say. And on an end note, thankfully we have neuroscientists and psychologists working really hard to come to a conclusion of, do we or not have free will? Currently, we know so little about consciousness that it's hard to talk about this in any other form than just pure logic and philosophy. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and remember to always stay curious and don't ever stay with the way that things look. Try and always look deeper and look to see why people say the things that they say, because a lot of the times it will lead you down more and more information and perhaps finding the truth about whatever it is you are researching. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.